Welcome to the CFB Dynasty podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there in college fantasy football land? This is the CFB Dynasty podcast. My name is Matt Knowles, as always, alongside the founder and the creator of CFB Dynasty, Brian McElfresh. Brian, how you doing today? We are right there on the cusp of the college fantasy season. Why don't you let us know how many days we got until the actual college football season starts? I know you're excited.
Yeah, so week 0, we get Georgia Tech, FSU in 15 days. How great is that?
15 days, and that means that the college fantasy football drafts are coming up. I know I've got one in 2 days. I know our main home league draft is, 15 days from this recording?
Yep.
So that means that most of you guys out there are setting up your draft boards right now, and that's why we're here. We want to help you guys set up your draft boards. We want to help you take your college fantasy football experience to the next level. That's why we're here.
That's right, man. Have some fun. Use some data. We've got all of it out there, and updates are happening all the time, and way more now that we can actually hit the news drop and all that stuff here in a few minutes.
Yeah, so before we get to the news drop, we always want to get into something that's, if there's news that's out there that's relevant that happens in the season, something that came out the other day, it was on CBS Sports, the SEC is moving towards adopting a mandatory injury report.
Amen.
I know this is, if you've listened to this podcast for the last couple of years, if you've played college fantasy, you know how absolutely infuriating it is that there's not mandatory injury reports. BMAC, what do you think about your conference, the SEC, the one that you designed and started from scratch all those years ago? What do you think about the SEC starting this? Do you hope that this is a trend? Give us your thoughts.
It's a trend. You got to credit the Big Ten for starting that trend last year. So they did this, and it's a big win for all of us, especially, if you're used to it. Week 1, week 2, unlisted or unnamed suspensions and injuries and all that stuff. That's just coaches are trying to hide for a competitive advantage. I remember going into last year, this was very relevant for Florida because it was Cam Rising. Was he going to play? It looks like he's going to be a game time decision. He was spotted making passes and all that stuff. He ends up not playing at all the whole year. But of course, Florida had to prepare for him as if he was going to play. So he's back for a 7th year. And if you're wondering, yeah, he's eligible for an 8th year. If he wants to come back next year, he can do that, which is pretty crazy. But we'll see less and less of that. So that'll be great. You might not get the actual injury. You'll get a lower extremity. He's questionable. Yeah. But at least we'll get that.
At least we're going down the right path, because the thing that's frustrating as somebody who owns Cam Rising, if I knew before the season started, hey, this could be a season sacrificing injury, maybe I draft differently. Maybe I go and get somebody else different in the draft. I know last year it was like, hey, you know what? He might be able to go into that first game and play against Florida. Okay, so maybe I'm going to construct my roster around that. And he's not the only one. He's just the biggest, most extreme example. But we know week for week how frustrating it is when you're like, yeah, the guy had a hangnail that was undisclosed and he just didn't play. And you've already got your roster set up and he's in your starting lineup. So hopefully the SEC does go to that, and hopefully the other conferences follow suit, because that's one of probably the single most frustrating thing in all of college fantasy.
The good news is, if you pay attention to kind of how things are shifting in the sport, where the conferences are going to hold the power, and it's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC seemingly that are going to hold the power. And if they're both going to that, they're going to make everyone else go to that too in the future. So, gotta love it. It's great news for those of us who have been playing for 15 plus years of college fantasy and just dealing with the pain of that. And then also got to credit Fantrax, the fantasy platform we've used for so many years, because they have a system for, if someone doesn't play, here's my backup kind of thing, which we used to do, on napkins or whatever.
We still do.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so that's the big news story coming out of this week. Now we definitely want to get into, for the first time this season, the news and notes.
News and notes around college football.
All right, so the biggest news story coming out of this week is CJ Baxter from Texas, injured, out for the season. This changes the rankings dramatically. If you go to our cheat sheets, if you go to our running back rankings, you're going to see a couple of different things we want to make sure we call on right now. So BMAC first, let's talk about the impact of CJ Baxter being injured and how this is going to affect Texas's backfield, in your opinion.
Jaydon Blue, man, he's the guy. There was a lot of talk around, and I posted it in the Discord, just so much that I read about him that's like, he's expecting to be the man, even though on depth charts, you got your preseason magazines, whatever. Baxter's number one on the depth chart everywhere. Oh, it's Jaydon Blue now. And here we go, because we've got less of a shared backfield. You hate where you've got Penn State with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Ohio State, same thing with Judkins and Travion Henderson. We were going to see something similar with an O-line that's proven, ton of returning talent along the O-line. I think like 86% of their starts are back at Texas. But now it's Jaydon Blue, and he's going to be the guy out of the backfield. You see him making great catches if you're watching on YouTube. Out of, behind that O-line, he's going to put up loads and loads of points. So Baxter was 29th, and Blue was already kind of high as RB2, or as an RB2. But with Baxter being gone, that shifts things completely. So we've got him, Blue, with the projections adjusted a little bit for him to get a higher percentage of the targets than Baxter was projected to get. He's at RB8 right now. What do you think about that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly what I'd have done, where if you've got a situation where you, like you said, you went from a running back by committee in a sense, now there's not going to be any dispute as to who's going to be getting the lion's share of those carries. I think that makes a lot more sense. There's clarity in the backfield. And so, yeah, that's kind of like what happened with Boise State last year, where you had two running backs that looked like they were going to be splitting carries, and then one of them gets injured early in the season, and Ashton Genty became the guy and was basically the guy the rest of the season. So that hopefully that's what's going to happen. If you're a CJ Baxter owner, you're not going to be happy about that. But Jaydon Blue owners, you're going to be jumping for joy over the fact he's probably going to be getting, the lion's share of those carries for you.
The projections, they're at 1,128 yards for Blue, 11 touchdowns, 20 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns, puts him at 230 projected fantasy points on the year at RB8. But he could definitely exceed those. If Texas, I can see a path where Texas, pretty far exceeds. I mean, their expectations are pretty high, to be honest. They're projected around, I think, 9.5 wins is their over under that you can bet. But statistically, I can see Blue exceeding those numbers.
Now, if you're also somebody that's looking at the website, do want to call out one more thing. I think it's a smart decision that BMAC did. BMAC, why don't you scroll all the way down that page so people can see what you did for Baxter?
Yeah, I will call out the little up arrow here for Blue. Members asked us for this last year in the Discord, and it was a great idea. And so while there's a lot of changes that are going to be happening, we'll get that feedback to you with those icons. And then I did leave Baxter at the bottom because there's plenty of people that don't pay attention to the news and may not know about Baxter, or they're going into a draft and they might search for him because we have a search box up at the top of our rankings, and you'll see the little sad icon. Let me see if I can blow it up. It's probably going to degrade the quality quite a bit, but a couple little guys carrying someone else on a mat. And it is sad. I mean, you should be sad about Baxter.
I think it's great. I think it's much better than having the Swiss cross up there. I think that having people being carried off on the stretcher, just like in soccer, you might have a hangnail, but you're still going to get the stretcher journey off the field. So I do think that this is a great idea. And so that way, if somebody's in your draft and they're like, hey, I want to draft, ABC, and they don't see him on there, they don't still try and draft him. They can literally go in there and see, hey, there's a reason why he's now down in the 350s. And the thing is too, you're looking at the running back rankings and you're looking at the dynasty ranking, the individual season rankings. This may not be where Baxter is going to go if you're in a keeper league or a Devy league. So he might still be up the rankings quite a bit on those other two lists. This is for seasonal redraft leagues.
Yeah, and speaking of Devy, we'll get a taste of Jayden Gibson a little earlier than we thought this year, the 5-star freshman that committed to Texas. We've got him as the 145th best redraft running back. He could definitely exceed that. We've got him at, he can exceed that for sure, just depending on how many touches he gets. I think we've got him around 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, whereas before it was completely minimal.
All right, so we do have some other injuries we wanted to make sure we called out. Oklahoma wide receiver Jaydon Gibson suffered a knee injury. He's awaiting the MRI. BMAC, any commentary you got for that one about Jaydon Gibson?
No, not really. Good, talented guy, good red zone target, but Oklahoma is it's all going to be about the O-line for them to see if, how's the running game going to do? How much time is Arnold going to have? How are they going to handle the SEC schedule? And while I know they have talent at all of those positions, they lost all 5 of their O-linemen, and we'll see how they recover. But Gibson wasn't projected to be like the guy at Oklahoma, so it's probably more for deeper leagues. He's more of a waiver wire pickup in redraft leagues.
All right, so we'll kind of go fast and furious through some of the rest of these. Utah State wide receiver Micah Davis transferring to Ole Miss last year, 36 receptions, 628 yards, 6 TDs. Was expected to have a great season in CFF. So is there anything about his eligibility? Is he going to be eligible right off the bat there, or is he going to have to wait out?
He is. I don't have him on the depth chart for Ole Miss because they're so deep. We'll see. I don't know how much. He's just a wait and see kind of guy. Like, he's not going to be someone I draft at all. Now, he was going to be pretty valuable as a wide receiver too in an offense that passed the ball a lot. So stock up for Robert Freeman there. We've got, he's coming up from a smaller division, and he was a super productive guy there, and he's had some good practice reports and stuff from the spring. We really don't know, how many touches he's going to get and where he'll end up on the depth chart. But I like Freeman as someone you can currently draft like mid to late, as he's got, wide receiver like 1 or 2 type of potential that you can get in a mid to late round. Now with Micah transferring out to Ole Miss like everyone else.
All right, so UF running back Montrell Johnson week to week after a knee scope. Georgia running back Branson Robinson, he's able to practice without limitations. UGA wide receiver Rara Thomas dismissed from the team, so there will be no Rara Sispumba for him this year. UCF wide receiver Kobe Hudson played in their scrimmage. He was limited in the spring, so we feel like he's going to be good for the rest of the regular season. And then last but not least, Syracuse tight end Oronde Gadsden participated in practice. This is huge news because last year he was a top 2 tight end, and his injury last year really threw off the performance of tight ends. So if he is back, he's a top 5 tight end coming in this year. If he's back at full strength, he's somebody that you're going to see people probably reaching on high to get in their draft, because there's such a drop off once you get past those first few tight ends, as you've heard us talk about in previous pods. First, if you get a great tight end, that could really change the performance of your squad.
Yeah, and he's the guy with the upside. Wide receiver ability. Well, he was wide receiver eligible, I think, on Fantrax going into last year, and now he's listed as a tight end pretty much everywhere. We'll see, yeah. But that's super promising. He's someone that, we've listed as tight end 1 the whole offseason. So seeing that news certainly is a big deal.
All right, so that's the news and notes for now. We're going to have fun. It's just a minute talking about a huge announcement about the Open League, Masters, and Open League that we're going to have this year coming up.
Yeah, so we ran the Open League last year. And that was great. And as planned, we're going to launch the Masters League in a promotion relegation format. The Open League last year was great. Let me throw up on the screen just to promote Saucy Dossie, who crushed it. Like last year, he had an incredible season. There were a couple guys that were just far and away, like in terms of points, they just crushed it. So everyone who finished, and Matt, I'll let you do the introductions and talk a little bit more about the Open League, but we're
Sure.
going to try and promote it as much as we can. There will be, where it says more information coming soon there. So for those of you on the pod, you can get to it under the news section in the top nav. There's Open and Masters League, and we've got past champions there. This will be the first year of the Masters, the second year of the Open, and we'll hopefully be able to fill out multiple Open leagues that will serve as feeder leagues to this promotion relegation format.
So what the goal is this year, what we're going to try to do is take the tops from the Open League last year. Basically, they have been promoted into the Masters. We're going to hand pick some guys that we know are going to be straight up ballers, that are going to be the elite of the elite, that are also going to fill out the Masters League. Anybody that was in the Open League last year is going to have the ability to sign back up again to be in the Open League. As BMAX said, if we can get enough people, we would probably split up. Last year we had 24 teams in a single Open League. This year, I don't think that the goal is to have 24 in a single. We'd rather have a couple of Open leagues. That way we can do true promotion relegation, which is we will discuss what the rules and regulations will be behind that. Obviously, if you come in lower in the Masters League, you're going to find yourself being dropped down into the Open League, having a chance to get moved back up. And I think that we're probably going to be keeping track of how many years if you're somebody, you might just be in the Open League for 6 years. That might be an accomplishment in and of itself, to just be in that Masters League and never get relegated. But it's going to be super fun. The leagues are going to run with the same rules as far as the like roster limits, eligibility, things like that. But we'll get into it soon as to what the overall regulations are going to be there. The most important part for you guys that are listening to the podcast is if you want to sign up, we're going to start having signups very soon. BMAX is going to get those things up, and we'll let you know from there where we go as far as the draft. I know that the draft, we're probably going to set it up for. Do we want to talk about the date now for the draft? Yeah. The draft is going to be,
let's go.
We're going to start a slow draft on Tuesday, August 20th, which is going to be a day before the CFB Open League. So we might even be literally in the CFB Home League draft.
We will be.
And there might be somebody getting picked while we're there in the Open or the Masters, because we're going to have to run a couple drafts at the same time. But most importantly, we want to know if you want to get signed up. There will be a fee to be in the regular league. There would be a fee to be in the Masters League. There are going to be cash prizes at the end of each season. So know that this is definitely not going to be a, just a free league. Just go out there and do it for fun. We want to make sure you guys know you're going to get rewarded for your competitive spirit and your success on the fantasy field.
Yeah, it'll be great. So we're going to try and keep, at least for now, keep the Masters this year in 2024 to 12 teams. We already know that field is set. And then for the Open leagues, essentially, let's just say we have 2 Open leagues and we fill them up with 20 people in each. Well, the top 3, so the top 6 in each of those will get, money payouts. The top 3 will get promoted in each league to the Masters League the following year, and the bottom 6 will drop out of the Masters League. So that's going to be fun, and I hope I don't get dropped. But
no, the thing is too. So that way people don't go back to this pod and go, but BMAX said the top 3 doesn't always mean the top 3 records. We're going to make sure you guys know before the season starts what the ways are that you can get promoted, what the ways are you can get relegated, so that way it's very clear before the season starts and there's no questions.
Yep. Yeah. So like you said, we might go, champion, runner up, and then whoever had the most points after that or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get all that stuff together for you. It's going to be super fun. If you were somebody that was out there in the open league last year, I think everybody can say that we had a lot of fun. All the 24 people that were in that league, all the way down to the bottom of the list. I mean, and I can tell you that I know the bottom of the list had fun because BMAC and Doug pretty much ran the bottom of the list last year. I was one spot off of the playoffs. I was in 7th. I was in a 5-way tie for 5th, just barely missed the playoffs. But BMAC and Doug were down there. They were like, if this was the Titanic, they were down there in like the steerage class, down there in the bottom rung of the Titanic. And I know you guys want nothing to do with that again this year.
No, yeah. Oronde Gadsden was my 3rd round pick. So going back to the injury news, that was a bad one. And I also, I feel like there was some misinformation around, what's my boy from UTSA that I had on my team. And I took him early-ish, and he didn't play the whole year.
That's terrible. Oh, yeah. That was the transfer issue, right?
No, it wasn't the guy that transferred over to Ole Miss, but it was still a UTSA guy. Anyways, yeah. It'll be a fun one this year.
You guys see how BMAC's demeanor? You see how BMAC's demeanor just changed when I started talking about him being in 19th place. He's like, dude, don't even be bringing this nonsense up, man.
Through some waiver wire pickups, I ended up getting closer, but it was bad most of the year. And that's what can happen. Just a couple bad picks early and season ruined. And you gotta fight and claw to get back up, but it'll be fun. And I am competitive. I don't like hearing that, but it's just the truth.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments here. If not, or if you want to go to the Discord, we'll make sure that there is a post on Discord that says any questions, anybody that wants to sign up for the open league, to make sure you let us know there so we can make sure we get you directed where you need to be.
Absolutely. And I'll try and have that out today. But it's going to be fun, and I look forward to it. And we had a lot of good banter during the draft and all season long with the comments. So we'll keep talking about it during our midweek Wednesday show during the season. We typically will have a segment at the end where we just talk about what's going on in those leagues, and it's fun competing and having fun with you guys.
All right, so we have a really short pod today. That's about all we have to talk about. Next week's show, we're going to hopefully be able to get another mock draft in for you so that you can see maybe how it's changed since BMAC and I did the marathon mock draft. We're going to try to get good old Doug back in here, see if we can find a time to get him back in so that he can participate. We can get his mindset, his thoughts in on that. But that's all going to be whether or not we can find a way to find a spot for Doug in the schedule. Had some job changes there, so he's not going to be able to be on the pod as much, but he's still here in spirit.
Yeah. Oh, gravely. Are you ready for the draft, Matt? You feeling ready?
I'm feeling ready enough. I don't feel like I look at my roster there and I'm like, man, I felt like my roster was good. I look at my roster as far as like going into next year's pro draft. This is going to be the year that I've got the most pro potential, most pipeline potential. Like if you look at some of the mock drafts that are out there, I've got 6 guys that could go in the top 2 rounds. If the draft was happening, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but my team needs some work this year. I definitely feel like I've got some holes, but you know what? I might be able to fill them. You never know. I mean, I think that I lost in the semis last year, so I feel pretty good about that. But, I look at my team and I'm like, how did this team, other than my running backs are massive, but I got to go build up in other spots to try and be able to compete with people like BMAC and the Mike D's and all that of the world. All right, BMAC. So what do you think about your team this year, your fantasy prep? Are you ready for the draft on your side?
So I have some my guys that I really want to follow me. I, only have a few spots available on my roster. So, and I don't have picks in rounds 2 or 3. So,
but you do have that 1.1. You do have that 1.1 though.
Yeah, I traded. I made some moves last year to try and position myself to get Lagway, obviously, just for fun. I wanted to have Lagway. Dillingham's had all the best Gator quarterbacks, so I wanted to get one.
Now, do you
Hopefully
truly
it works
think?
out.
Do you truly think that Lagway is going to be a guy that is going to be worthy of the 1-1 in a league like ours? Or is that one of those, as a Gator fan, you're reaching for him because you know that there's a lot of Gator fans in the league, and if you don't get him there, you're probably not going to get him later on?
He'll be top 3, I think, in most leagues. You got Jeremiah Smith up there, and it really just depends on someone's needs. If they go another wide receiver like a Cam Coleman, who could bust out and could be the best receiver right now on Auburn's roster. But because the other quarterbacks are, like Rayola is really good and he can go up there, but Lagway is just that perfect dual threat guy to where if he works out, he's
right. And remember,
incredible.
we're talking dynasty or Devi right here. We're absolutely not talking seasonal redraft when it comes to Lagway.
Right. So, yeah, he'll be that guy. And then it's really just waiting on a couple guys and see what happens in rounds 2 and 3 and what's left for me later in round 4. I don't think I have a round 5 either. So it's going to be uneventful. I'm going to eat a lot of the snacks that we have and chicken wings and whatever is out there. But I'll be nervously awaiting my picks.
All right. So I got a question for you. I'm just going to throw one out there to you because during the season, we love questions from you guys about, would you take this guy or that guy in the draft? So 2 of the elite running backs that are out there, if you had a chance, and we're talking for their college performance and also their pro potential, if you had a chance to take Nick Singleton and a running back by committee at Penn State, or Damian Martinez, who is now in a similar situation in Miami, not at Oregon State, and you could pick one of those guys for college performance, but also their pro potential, you could pick one and your rivals getting the other one. Who do you take?
Singleton. Yeah, I still like his just his overall package, the speed that he has. Martinez is really good. He's powerful. And I said Singleton so quickly that it sounds like it would be like some pretty big gap there. And I don't think that's the case. I like Martinez quite a bit. But I'd still edge a little bit with Singleton. Maybe I'm just slow to move and he hasn't really broke out and been what we kind of hoped he would be. But I would also argue neither has the entire Penn State offense. So new OC, let's see what happens.
I think pro potential wise, Singleton is one of those guys that probably has got the top on a pro potential side. I think the difference, I think the difference with Martinez, at least with Singleton, it's almost the devil you know versus devil you don't know. We know what Martinez was in the Oregon State offense. We know what his position was. We know what his role was. Do we know that that's going to be what his role is going to be in Miami? So I think from a college perspective, maybe that question mark there might give Singleton the edge. But like you said, Martinez has actually produced at a high level in college. Singleton hasn't yet. So that's what makes those two guys that are right there pretty much next to each other in the draft lists. Pretty much you could find one aspect and it's going to put Singleton at maybe a little bit of an edge. The next aspect going to put Martinez a little bit of the edge. So we want those kind of questions from you guys. We want you to go up onto Discord. We want you guys to be hitting us up, asking questions like that, because we love being able to have these kind of debates.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say, I noticed we're higher on Nico Iamaleava than most in terms of fantasy, but I do want to remind everyone, while they do have a tough schedule, week 1 of the fantasy playoffs, they're at Georgia. So you're not running with Nico at that point. Tennessee's offense was number 1, I think, in passing a couple years ago. And that was with Hendon Hooker. Iamaleava is better. And they continue to improve. Like, don't forget what Tennessee was before Joe Milton. I was worried as a Florida fan he was going to come out in the second half and, catch fire. But they really just didn't play him much until the bowl game, and he scored 4 touchdowns. Bowl games you don't want to read into that much, but still, I love what Nico and that offense can be. We did bump down TJ Finley a little bit just a little concerned, obviously, about, similar to Joe Milton, accuracy issues, that kind of thing. Will he really be able to put up that amount? He was already bumped down, I think 18% of the 3-year running average of the QB1 at Western Kentucky. But that's just because they've been so insanely good and productive at passing that he was still top 5. Even with that, we bumped him down a bit more. And so he's more in the QB2 range, where I wouldn't feel comfortable going into the season with Finley as my QB1. So that was really part of, let's move him down. I feel better about some of these other players, but other movements happened in there. So if you've downloaded the rankings, which I know I've emailed them to some of you guys, you can also download them from the website. Go for it, re-download it. We've got some changes in there. We've added some things, and more to come. I still do have to update dynasty rankings with the injury news and all that stuff.
And you know what? One last thing real quick before we head out for the day. If you are a subscriber on the CFB Dynasty site and you have any issues, there's been time to time, we don't know what the configuration issues are.
Should be fixed.
Yeah, if you sign up and for whatever reason you go to log in and it doesn't pull up the rankings, or it goes a little bit slow, BMAC's email address is right there. He personally will contact you and let you know and deal with that issue for you. He's going to be very responsive on that. We had one this past week. And he took care of that, and the person was satisfied with as quickly as it happened. So just so if you go up there and there's any kind of issue that pops up, we don't expect it to, but if it does, take heart, and we know we're going to get that thing resolved for you.
Yep. And the issue that was fixed, where some people were logged in, clicking the rankings, and it wouldn't load the actual list, which is obviously a problem. It was a weird bug, but it turns out that we think it was just a caching issue, working through it with a developer and the hosting company, and that should be fixed. If you run into that issue again, please let me know so that I can fix it. I think it should be fixed.
I can tell you from my side, I haven't had that issue, but I could see just today it looked like the lists were loading faster. Sometimes it would take an extra second or two to go from, to actually pull up the quarterback list or whatever list. It actually seemed like it was moving faster on the side. So maybe that's really something that was
slower, to be honest. But anyways, we don't need to get into the details.
No, but I'm saying maybe that's something that was also addressed in that. So that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so that's it for the CFB Dynasty podcast for today. The next one, we hopefully are going to have another mock draft, and we hope you guys are going to take advantage of what we have on the site as a subscriber, because we here at CFB Dynasty want to help you take your college fantasy football experience to the next level. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.